welcome back. My name's Stephen. Thank you for joining me on my photography journey today. As you can see, I am not in my usual studio. I've gone away for the week, a bit of peace and quiet in the woods and surrounded by trees. Makes me kind of happy. I've not been very good at posting recently. I've not been very good at taking pictures recently, and I need to get back into it. Hence, being out here in somewhere that makes me happy. And it means I've got lots of opportunity to take pictures and edit pictures and just go exploring with my camera. And one of the things that I've been thinking about while I've been doing that is how there's kind of some functions on the Nikon Z cameras. I've got the Z5 here, for example, that are really useful for when I'm out and about taking pictures and I want to change settings easily, or I want a particular setup. So I thought today I'd run through 10 of these because it's a nice round number and talk to you about why I have them this way, and they're kind of settings that you may have missed, but hopefully not. So let's have a look and see what we've got. So number one is the custom settings on your camera. I've talked about this before, but for example, you've got the F1 and the F2 buttons on the front here. These can be customized to pretty much anything that you want. And I've got F1, so top one on the front here. I hold on to that, I twist the dials. Twisting this back one will change the focus mode. So manual focus, AFS or AFC, and then pressing and holding it and twisting the dial on the front will change the size of the focus area. So whether it's pinpoint, whether it's a single point AF, or whether it's the whole screen, that's how I change that. So pressing and holding that, turning the two dials, and I've got my focus mode set up exactly as I want it for that particular situation. And I know on other Z series cameras there's more buttons than that. So for example, the Z8 had a function 3 button on the back, and that again could be set for these, but all of these buttons on here can be customized to some extent. I've talked about this before, so go back and have a look at that if you want to know a little bit more about that. So the next thing up is silent mode, and this is particularly useful when you're out here and you're trying to take pictures of wildlife or something like that. So I've got that set up in the I menu, which I've talked about recently. What you do for that is, for the I menu, press the I button on the back, and then it's a setting on there that I just press onto, choose silent mode on or silent mode off. And what that does, it turns off all the noises on your camera. So it will use the electronic shutter rather than the mechanical shutter, so you have no shutter noise, and it won't allow a flash to be used, and just little things like that which will make it a bit easier to kind of blend into the background. So like I said, taking pictures of wildlife, if there's something close by that I don't want to disturb while I'm taking pictures, then I can switch it to silent mode fairly easily and then be able to just take those pictures without any worry. Number 3 on my list is focus peaking. So I use this when I am manually focusing, which I don't do that often, but you can have come up on the display an indicator, basically red lines to show you what is in focus or what's not in focus. And the red lines will indicate the part of the picture that is in focus. So you can manually set your focus, particularly if you're looking at something small, something detailed, something that's not moving. Then you can use that to make sure that your focus is correct before actually taking that picture, getting back to Lightroom and realizing that you've missed something. So that can be quite useful. Like I said, not something that I use a lot, but is something that I have made use of, particularly when I'm taking pictures of things like still life, like products or coffee is my usual thing. That's when it comes in quite useful for me. And then 4 and 5 are quite similar. We've got Timelapse Movie mode, and then we've got another mode which is very similar, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So Timelapse Movie mode, in your photo shooting menu, you can go into there and it will basically create a time-lapse movie for you. It will use the kind of video functions of the camera, and it will smooth things in between the pictures that it's taking to give you your final movie. It will give you it in a movie format at the end. And then, like I said, we've got our number 5, which is your interval timer shooting mode. And this is kind of that more advanced version of the movie time-lapse. And here you can set it up using the full sensor of the camera. You can set when you want to start shooting, how many frames a second you want to take, how long you want to take this for, and any kind of focusing and things like that in between. And you get a much better quality product at the end of it, because each individual frame is made up of kind of full high quality images, and you have a bit more control over how you do it, when you start, when you stop, and things like that. And then you can use an app like Photo Pills, which I've talked about in the past, in order to work out how many pictures you'll need to take to get your time lapse to fit into, say, a 30-second clip or something like that, so that you can use a calculator like that to make it as easy as possible to generate enough pictures to make your time-lapse movie. Something that I don't use as often, because I mainly shoot in RAW, but comes in quite useful, particularly when I'm recording video, is the different picture controls that you've got in your camera. So this is number 6, I think, on my list. And the different picture controls will change the colors that are recorded by the camera. So what you see as red will be varied slightly depending on the picture control that you use. So there's things like vivid, landscape, there is a kind of a neutral one, a flat one, and then more stylized ones. And again, you can edit these as well, so you can have your own take on these different things and save them into your camera. Like I said, this is quite useful for me for video. For example, I'm recording this on the Z30 and I am using the portrait style, the picture control. And that just gives me more of the colors that I like to come out of my video, rather than having to worry about tweaking them too much when I'm doing my editing side of things. The next thing on the list, number 7, is being able to use the Nikon Snapbridge app. I always get that name wrong, Snapbridge. And the idea of this is that you can wirelessly control your camera. So not only does it give you a Bluetooth connection to your camera, so you can take the location data from your phone, it will also allow you to remotely control your camera. So you have got the option of changing your shutter speed, your ISO, your aperture and everything like that using your smartphone, which can be quite useful. Either taking self-portraits or taking pictures where you can't particularly reach your camera, or you want to be a bit further away from it. You can use this function to control it and to be able to set it up how you want. So number 8, I believe, is the bracketing mode, and this allows you to take a variety of pictures, all one after the other, with slightly different settings applied to them. So what I usually do is adjust my exposure in these. So I will use the controls within that to expose normally, expose a third of a stop under and a third of a stop over. So then I'm exposing for the shadows, exposing for the highlights, and kind of a normal one. And then afterwards I can combine these 3 pictures all together and create one image, which is the combination of all of them, without having to struggle too much to pull out the shadow details or kind of worry about blowing out the highlights. I think this is number 9, the user modes on the top of the camera. Here you can set up different options so that you can just twist the dial to U1, U2 or U3 and then have the particular settings that you like available, so that you can then take pictures for landscapes and then have it set up differently for user 2 to be animals or user 3 to be portrait or something like that. So you've got a lot of different options at just the twist of a dial, rather than having to adjust your ISO, your shutter speed, your aperture every single time. You've got your preset defaults, and then obviously you can change from there as well. And I guess number 10 would be the ability to switch easily between the Z30 and the Z5. the same lenses work on both cameras, the menus are the same, the controls are roughly the same, so that I can use one or the other but still get that same familiar feeling and be able to make the most out of the particular camera that I've got with me on that day. And that comes to the Z8 as well. I borrowed that a little while ago. Go back and have a look at what I did with that, and from there I could just easily move through the menus. There's obviously some minor differences. There's more options on the Z8 than on the Z30, and finding those options was quite a nice way to discover that camera. And the familiarity between the two of them meant that I wasn't having to learn a whole new system just when I picked up a new camera. So what are your secret tips? What are your favorite features of the Nikon Z series cameras? Are they the same as mine? Have I missed something? Let me know in the comments and we can start a discussion on what are the best features for everyone coming to these cameras. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you've learned something, and I will see you again next time on my photography journey. Bye.